What is going on, party people? I'm your guy, Halsey Schider. Welcome to the Helicopter Podcast. Just grateful to be chatting again on the podcast today, and very thankful, of course, for vertical HeliCASTS put on by MHM Publishing. That's what makes all this possible. If you haven't checked out vertical HeliCASTS, I really suggest you do. In fact, my guest today was a referral to come work at my helicopter business through a HeliCASTS podcaster, Quinny, Jason from The Real Rescue. And so, Wes, I'm assuming at that point that you're a consumer of vertical HeliCASTS?
Yes. Although I've listened to a lot more of Jason than I have of you at this point.
Wow. Coming off hot here. That really, I mean, look, Jason.
I've got 2 years experience with him so far. We're catching up quick though.
Yeah. What's up with that? You just, cause I mean, look, his is, you're front of the cockpit, right? Or front of the helicopter. He's kind of in the back of the helicopter. What drew you to his podcast?
I mean, at the time there wasn't very many like helicopter podcasts. And before that, and still am a huge podcast consumer. So once I got into the helicopter thing, I found Jason Quinn's podcast. I think he was on like episode like 3 or 4.
Wow.
Whatever.
Yeah, so you're like are you like a super fan?
Yeah, super fan for sure.
Jason's awesome. If you're listening and you haven't checked out The Real Rescue on the Vertical HeliCASTS platform, I highly suggest you do. Jason was Rescue Swimmer 500. AKA he's a badass. And I know he has some amazing people on his podcast, and they really talk about some cool things. So I'm excited, and I feel honored to be on the same platform with people like him and John Gray from the Hangar Z, and of course the Vertical MRO as well. So Wesley Rhoads is joining us today on the podcast. Again, Wesley was introduced through Jason, and now Wes has actually been working at Helicopter now for a couple months, kicking ass, taking names, go-getter, cool dude, helicopter pilot, but a little bit of an interesting kind of path, interesting kind of career path as well, getting into CFIing and things. So, Wes, welcome to the Helicopter Podcast. Why don't you just start with just a little bit on you and your journey, how you ended up in helicopters, what you were doing before, just the whole skinny.
Yeah, thanks, Halsey. And I'm super grateful to be here. We'll see where this thing goes. But yeah, a little bit about me. I grew up in West Virginia, a town called Huntington, where Marshall University is from. A lot of people are familiar with that town because of the movie We Are Marshall, which, interestingly enough, my grandfather was actually supposed to be on that airplane.
Real quick, can we tangent on that? Because it's been a long time. That was like the football team was in a plane crash, and did they all die?
That's correct.
That's horrific. How long ago was that?
1970, I believe. I think it was in September. I don't know the specific date, so I apologize for that.
Okay, so all the Marshall stuff is starting to make sense now of how you're connected. So was your grandfather part of the university then?
So no, not directly, but he was an athletic booster for the team. My family had a big business that employed a lot of people in Huntington, and so because of that, that's kind of how we're indirectly affiliated with Marshall. And he was supposed to be on that plane, and he gave his ticket away because he had a gallbladder attack. And I guess it was unfortunate, but fortunate that happened for our family. And condolences to everybody that lost family members.
Yeah, that was a horrible thing. Marshall's also known. They had who is like the really good quarterback that played at Marshall?
There's Randy Moss, Chad Pennington.
What, Randy Moss went to Marshall?
Yeah.
Oh, I'm looking this up real fast. I'm sorry. I gotta QBs from. I feel like there was like a good. That's how I originally heard about Marshall, and then of course that movie came out. You know, found out about the. I don't know. Someone write in the comments who was a good quarterback that played at Marshall. I didn't know that Randy Moss went there. Chad Pennington, he was.
I'm not the biggest sports fan in the world, so I'm the wrong guy to ask on that.
Yeah, you would fit in with. That's why you and Zach, producer Zach, are such good friends.
That's right.
He's not really into sports ball either.
No sports ball.
He's not a big sports ball guy. So you're from, that's where Marshall University is, West Virginia. I had no idea, actually. I didn't even know you were from West Virginia. So I'm learning things, Wes. Tell me more, please. I'm inspired.
So, yeah, I mean, I guess I'm technically from Georgia because I was born in Atlanta. Spent the best years of my life there from ages 1 to 3. And then from there to West Virginia. I was always into a little bit into stuff that was outside the mainstream, even from a young age. And I guess that's why instead of going airplanes, I ultimately went helicopter. And I do airplanes a little bit as well, but definitely first love is helicopter.
I mean, you are a dual rated guy, and you don't just do a little bit of airplanes. I mean, you're a commercially rated airplane pilot, right?
That's right.
Yeah. So, I mean, don't let him fool you guys. He's really on the dark side. Okay.
A little bit.
No, he's much more into helicopters, of course. So otherwise, we couldn't have him on. When did your love or this idea of helicopters happen from like as a little guy, or when did that actually like occur?
Yeah, great question. So from a young age, I remember always playing with different aircraft, aviation related toys, and just always had an interest in aviation. And then my grandfather, who was supposed to be on that plane that we just mentioned earlier, he was also a pilot, owned a couple airplanes. And so that was a bit of inspiration for me as well. And out of high school and going into college, I really tried hard to go for the Air Force Academy. However, I did have an incident in Ohio where I had to deal with some just a really crazy case of wrong place, wrong time. But I was arrested on my bicycle, and at 16 years old, completely no fault of my own. Just again, wrong place, wrong time. And so that took up a lot of time, and I kind of switched gears and was on a path to do the professional cycling thing. And so decided to pursue that path because this legal issue was going to get in the way of going the Air Force route. And then, so out of college, then went to trying to join the Air Force and was selected to be a pilot for the Air Force, was delayed 6 months to go to officer training school. And then I don't know if it was a drawdown or what exactly happened, but about 3 weeks before my ship date, they sent me an email saying that I was no longer going to be in a rated or a flying position, but I could still go through the process, and I just pulled the plug on it. And
man, that's a heartache.
It was, for sure.
I didn't know you were a criminal.
That is a long story, and I've not shared it on a public platform before personally.
You didn't need to. If it makes you feel better, I was arrested as well at the age of 21. Wrong place, wrong time. I was arrested for armed robbery.
Oh, geez.
In Portland, Oregon.
No.
And yeah, obviously I did not rob a 7-Eleven, no. But I was walking home from a party. I was young. I was not 21 yet, actually. I was 20 or 19 and was detained. I can't say arrested because I was just detained. And it went on for a while. It was kind of a surreal experience. And luckily they put the pieces together that I was not the perpetrator of the crime, but
Sure.
that was a kind of a funny moment. And then
I
it
can give
actually
you a
turned
long
in.
story. I can give you a long story short or a long story long, as Jason Quinn likes to say, on that.
I mean, it doesn't. It's not really prevalent to helicopters, so you can
No,
tell me. You can tell me offline, but that's. I'm interested. Now you said cycling. Like when you say cycling, you're talking about like Tour de France style cycling,
yeah, that's correct.
and you went to college for that, right?
That's correct. Yeah.
Where at?
I went to Lees McRae College. It's in the mountains of North Carolina, and they had the best program in the country. Certainly at the time we did, for sure.
So how good of a rider were you?
Um, I mean, I guess good enough to get on a varsity program.
Nice.
I did a international stage race with my junior team out of high school. But then once I got into college, just kind of had a string of bad luck when it came to cycling. But that actually came at a good time because the sponsorship money during like the 2012 area, it kind of dried up because of some stuff that happened with a very famous cyclist at that time.
All you blood doping cyclists ruined it.
Right, exactly.
I don't want to get on a tangent here, but I've been watching this thing on Netflix about cycling, about the Tour de France. I don't understand cycling. I don't like.
Okay.
It doesn't really make sense to me. Like it seems like it would be basic. Like, okay, there's a bunch of riders and they all ride.
Right.
And then like whoever gets to the finish line is first, but I don't know if that's even the case. Like, is that the case? Like none of it makes sense.
Yeah. I mean, for the Tour de France, especially, there's like multiple races going on within that race. And so generally speaking, you're more or less right, but the yellow jersey is the one who has the best overall time consecutively throughout the entire race.
I got you.
Yeah.
So this is your opportunity to just come clean to the world, unlike Lance did. Did you blood dope?
I did not blood dope.
Don't lie to me.
Certainly would not.
Hey man, I think everyone was cheating back then. So that's interesting. So you go to college, you want to be a professional cyclist. When does that cycling dream start to maybe fade? And is it at that time that you were kind of then trickling towards aviation?
Yeah, I mean, 3 major things happened. I got sick, one, right before I went into college. And then my first year there, I broke my leg and then recovered from that. And then almost immediately the next season, herniated 2 discs in my back. And that I wouldn't say that was a career ender, but it made me have to take a deep look into it. It's like, is this really what I want to do, and rehab this and keep on that path? And then that was the same time as the money in cycling kind of dried up. And so it was like, you know what? I think I'm going to choose a different path. And I'm glad I did, because here we are.
As I say, the rest is history. So where does the aviation path officially pick up? I feel like you bounced around a little bit with schools just based on some of the conversation that we've had.
Yeah.
Walk me through kind of that journey a little bit. And if you wouldn't mind also just talking about what flight school was like for you. What was fun?
Sure.
What was hard? What did you expect versus the actual how it was type of situation? Right. Just bear in mind that a lot of our listeners are kind of at maybe that stage right now of wanting to pursue school. And I like to give people an honest assessment of like what school meant to me and what I liked, what I didn't like, what was hard, what wasn't hard, why you chose the school. So just give me the full rundown.
Sure. Yeah. And as a CFI now, like, don't let me forget somewhere on here to kind of, I'd love to tell your listeners a little bit more about what I think the most efficient path is from 0 to commercial pilot.
Well, Wes, I'm going to forget that 100%. So you tell us right now.
I will write it down.
You tell us right now, and then we're going to go back. You're in control, dude. You're the host now.
Thank you to our sponsor, Robinson Helicopter Company, the choice for unrivaled safety and reliability, so you can accomplish any mission with confidence. For more than half a century, Robinson has been at the forefront of the helicopter industry. From the R-22 to the R-66 turbine, Robinson makes helicopters accessible so more people can accomplish more missions. Climb higher. For additional information, visit www.robinsonheli.com.
Sure. Well, I mean, I believe that the most efficient way to do this, if you've got a good aptitude for learning and decent hand-eye coordination, if you have those two things, then I think it's very possible to do it the following way. And I think the best thing to do is go out and get your helicopter private pilot's license. I would do that in an R, and if you're trying to save money, definitely do that in an R-22 or a Cavalry, something like that. And then once you've got that private pilot's license in the helicopter wrapped up, there's something in the FAR AIM 6165 paragraph G that allows you to do a private instrument combined check ride. And I would do that in the airplane. So switch gears from helicopters to airplanes, get your private instrument combined. The reason that you have to do it that way is because your cross-country time can then count towards performing duties at PIC, which counts towards your overall PIC time. And you can do this in a light sport as well and really get the cost down, but 172 is going to be really efficient as well. And then once you've got that private instrument combined, you then go do your commercial helicopter add-on. And then as long as you've got a good instructor, a lot of this hinges on your instructor too, you can then get it done in the minimums and have spent a lot less than going from zero to commercial, just using the helicopter, because it is much, much more expensive to fly the helicopter than it is the airplane. Get your commercial and then go ahead and get your CFI immediately following that, and then do your instrument and double I immediately after that. And if you have the financial ability, I would go and do the same thing in the airplane while you're in learning mode and get commercial and CFI double I in the airplane, because it's going to be hard to go back and do it later if you didn't from the get-go.
100%. Okay, so I think I follow you most of the part. I get a little bit lost. First and foremost, general feedback. The one thing I don't agree in the beginning is, like, I would always suggest to do all your time in Robinson. And the only reason I suggest that is not because I'm drinking from my trusty Robinson factory coffee mug. It's not that. It's because of the SFAR 73 and knowing that most likely your job will be flying Robinson helicopters for your first job, that is, whether you're a CFI or you're flying tours or whatever it is. And so I always recommend doing Robinson time, because then that makes you competitive, A.
Right.
And B, it takes away any issue with the SFAR and then having to backtrack and do this really cost-effective way that Wes is pitching to you, and then get to the end of it and have to backtrack and pay an additional 25 or 50 hours, whatever it is.
That is a big caveat, because if you do do it this way, you will have all of your ratings done, and you won't have nearly enough helicopter time to qualify as a CFI in a Robinson helicopter. And so you're going to have to find somebody that's willing to take a chance on you to do tours until you have enough time, or you're going to pay for that out of pocket.
So you're saying that because of this route and it restricts the amount of flight time, that you don't get the 200 hours that's required for the SFAR?
That's correct.
How many hours on average does it put you at?
To be honest with you, you could do it in as little as 50 total helicopter hours. I have had a student of mine do it in 87.
Like, they have their CFI at 87 hours?
Yes.
Because they did the Wesley Rhoads path to success? That's
correct.
That's very interesting. So look, that's a very interesting path. I think that's a great cost savings path, but then I do get a little worried, Wes, on the first job. What are your thoughts?
Yeah. So I kind of figured this out as I went. So whenever I got my CFI, I was at 160 some odd hours in the helicopter. And so my thought on that was, one, I was either going to have to pay for it. And then 2, I had to figure out some way to get those hours, or find a school that uses a Schweitzer or a Cabri or something like that, where they don't have that minimum.
Sure.
So what I did is I emailed every service center east of the Mississippi and said, hey, I'm available to fly. If you guys know of anything, like, I'm here, ready, willing, and able. And so that actually led me into my first helicopter flying job. But I feel like you wanted to talk about the flight school experience first.
I'm having too much fun here now, Wes. We'll get back to that.
Okay. All right. Sounds good.
And trust me, when he says that he emailed every service center east of the Mississippi, I guarantee he did.
Yes.
He's nuts. Wes is a little unhinged. This guy is nuts. So you send those emails out. Who responded?
I didn't get very many responses. I think I got like 12. Most of them were.
Hey, 12 that's pretty good.
Hey, happy for you, but nope, we don't have anything. But I did get a couple that were like, who's going to insure you? And I was like, I don't know. Hopefully you will.
I didn't think that far.
And then I got one, which ended up being like my first helicopter job from a company that was about an hour away from where I was currently located. And he sent me back. He said, I don't need anybody to ferry helicopters right now, but I do need a tour pilot and instructor. Are you interested? And then, of course, I responded, well, absolutely. He told me where they were. When can you interview? And I said, I'll be there tomorrow. And so I went down and interviewed with Helivision in North Carolina, and interviews went well. And then I did my first flight interview, and there just so happened to be a presidential TFR. So that was fun. And then we got like a real life, not emergency, but we got a auxiliary fuel pump light on that first flight as well. And
that's nothing.
The owner of the company is like, what are you going to do? And I was like, well, I'm not going to land and turn it off because I don't think that we'll be able to turn it back on. So I think we should probably just go back to the airport. He's like, I agree with that. Okay. And then we did that, and they offered me the job, and super grateful for that opportunity. I did tours until I got to the 200 hours, and then just immediately started teaching once I hit that 200 hours.
Man, that's pretty cool. I've talked about this before on the podcast, but you're like a living proof of it. So we have to talk about it. I love the idea of the hustle, right? I think that so many people in the helicopter, in all business really, but helicopters, it's really easy to feel like there's a box and that you have to live inside that box. Halsey did it this way. Producer Zach did it this way. We're all idiots, man. We just lived in this box. And at that time, we didn't really have podcasts or YouTube that we could listen to and hear an alternative perspective like Wes is giving us here. And not that I'm saying like Wes's plan, it doesn't come with issues. Like there's problems to it. And this is the problem, is getting that first job. So like this is one way to skin the cat, and it's cool. What I love about this story is that Wes had to become resourceful. Wes had to advocate for himself. He took the initiative. I think we live in a bit of a soft society, right? We talk a lot about it, and where it's just like people want things given to them, or they expect this or they expect that. You were just probably like naive enough to think that someone would have. Did I just drop an F-bomb? Producer Zach, 23 minutes. We're going to have to bleep that out. I got excited. But I've never done that before. I'm like now losing my train here, but you were naive enough to think that someone would actually respond and give you an opportunity.
Yeah.
And that was awesome. And someone did. Someone responded and gave you this opportunity, which I think is super cool. So I love that, because if you're listening right now, that's an example that you don't have to live in the box, right? Your story, your path might be a little bit different. And if you're willing to hustle a little bit, you're willing to put yourself out there, you're willing to be creative and think outside of that box, so to speak, then good things can happen. So Wes, I don't actually really know your story all that well. And it's cool to hear that, because I think that that's a testament
Yeah.
of why you're good at helicopter, right? Like
Thank you.
you have this inherent yearning to hustle and, emailing. What did your email say?
It was basically,
Dearest service center owner.
right. Exactly.
My name is Wesley Rhoads.
I'm looking to ferry helicopters or literally whatever. If you need a pilot for any reason, I'm here. I'm available and ready to go wherever you need me.
So you're flying R-44 tours at 160 hours.
Right.
You get the 40 more hours. You start teaching. How long were you at Helivision?
I was there for about 2 years.
And you got up to your 1,000?
Yes. To circle back, the reason that I did everything the way that I did it and only had 160 is, I kind of implemented the plan that I laid out for you at the beginning, but it was to make myself a more attractive candidate for the Army National Guard. Because I was looking to get into aviation with the military because it was something that I just really wanted to do. And I thought that was probably the most efficient way to become a pilot and have a career as a pilot was in the military. So I actually went and did it all that way to make myself attractive for the military. Ended up joining the National Guard. It didn't go very well because as soon as I joined, COVID happened and just derailed like every plan anybody could have ever made. And so it didn't end up working out, but as a byproduct, I was able to kind of figure out an efficient way to do this. And I was very much probably like a lot of your listeners where, we weren't in a financial position to be able to just fully fund flight school. My wife and I lived in a van for 2 years, paying off all of our debts. And then I was in a fortunate situation where I was able to sell that van and then be able to finance flight school in the way that I did it. So, like you said, thinking outside of the box definitely will help you if you're pursuing this career, because it's not an easy one where you can get financing for it as easily as you could for like the airlines or, traditional, degree as, in finance, which is funny enough, what I have my degree in. You can get money lended to you very easily for those things, but it's difficult for aviation. So you do have to think out of the box a little bit.
You have to be creative. Or you can just be stupid like I was. I was 18, didn't know anything, took out a loan that I didn't understand. And, that was a dark period. I'll put it to you that way. There's advantages of starting young, and there's some superior disadvantages. And that was actually one of them. Understanding how to find.
Yeah, I was almost 30 when I started my private.
Yeah, so you're like, you're old as dirt at that point, right?
Right.
30 years old. That's a nice time to start, right? You have life experience. You get through your 20s. You kind of have things figured out a little bit more.
I wouldn't say that, but
I don't hate myself for going to school early because it's my path. It is what it is. But there's like some certain things that I definitely would have, the loan part, the debt part of that is a big part. That was my student loan was extremely hard to navigate for many years of my life. Even becoming a professional pilot and having that, $800 payment every month for what seemed to be like forever. And then I would pay it and I'm like, man, the principal doesn't seem like it's going down, it's going up.
Yeah.
And just by the grace of, God, at least in how I believe in things, I got to a point where I could just double down and get her paid off. But
sure,
it's that was a crazy time. So go into a plan. If you're a young person right now and you're getting into flight school and your thought is to do it through getting a loan, that be it maybe a private loan, because a lot of the government subsidized loans won't loan on helicopters.
Mm-hmm.
Make sure you understand it. Talk to your parents. If your parents aren't financially literate, talk to someone that is, because being able to be creative about the financing can really help you long term and save you a lot of headaches and not feel so poor. I remember driving home one time on Highway 26, heading home to Lake Oswego, out of all places. If you're familiar with Oregon and you're familiar with Lake Oswego, it's a very wealthy community. It's where I grew up. My parents gave me a great life. We weren't really like the wealthy part of Lake Oswego. My dad was a hardworking house painter. My mom was real estate and lending, and we lived a good life. But, the irony is, like, here I am coming home from my CFI job, driving into Lake Oswego, looking at all these big houses. And I'm wondering, do I put gas in my car? Do I pay my rent? Do I eat? Or do I pay my student loan? Like, that was my options, and that was very tight for a long time. So again, just make sure you're comfortable with the finances. As far as your actual flight school, Wes, what was the path? Where did you go? What did you like about the schools that you attended? What was expected? What was unexpected? We'll kind of go back to that first original question.
Thank you to our sponsor, Vertical Aviation International. Are you ready for the largest vertical aviation show in the world? Verticon, formerly HAI Heli Expo, is coming to Dallas in March. With over 15,000 professionals and 600 companies in attendance, this is an event you don't want to miss. If you're interested in exhibiting, contact sales at verticalavi.org. That's sales at verticalavi.org. See you at Verticon.
Yeah, it was extremely turbulent, to be honest with you. So I made the decision that I was going to go full into this thing and did my discovery flight at Inland Helicopters in Spokane, Washington. We were living in Coeur d'Alene, Idaho at the time, and I was ready to go. Like, let's do this. And the R-22 went to Seattle for maintenance the day after my discovery flight. And then it stayed there basically all winter because they weren't able to get it back for weather or whatever other reason. So I actually switched schools after about a month of waiting, and I went and lived in the van. We rented my wife a place in Coeur d'Alene. We were living at the van at the time. And then I went and lived in the van in the parking lot of the airport at Leading Edge in Bend, Oregon.
Hey, it's a pretty view from that parking lot.
Yeah. It's not bad when you can, see the other side of the runway.
That's true.
And so went there, had like 30 flights scheduled. And I think of those 30 flights, we made 9. And I remember making the call. I think it was right after Christmas. I had gone back to Coeur d'Alene and then came back, and the weather didn't look great. And I was trying to make the call whether to stay there or just drive back home, cut my losses. I decided to stay there between Christmas and New Year's to try to fly as much as I could. I did not fly a single time in that span. It was like I was just beside myself.
Now,
like,
to give Leading Edge a fair shake too, Central Oregon is actually historically not like that. Central Oregon's like high desert. Were you not flying because of low vis?
Low vis, and then if it wasn't low vis, it was high wind.
Okay, the wind thing I can see. Wind is definitely a higher wind, but visibility wise, I mean, Central Oregon's kind of like a very nice year-round place because of visibility. So, sounds like you just had some seriously bad luck.
I did. I did a little bit of time in the simulator there, which was fine. But then got disenchanted with the whole thing and went back to Coeur d'Alene. And then the R-22 came back to Spokane, and I was able to finish up my private and commercial there at Leading Edge in Spokane, which was awesome.
Not Leading Edge.
Sorry. Did I say Leading Edge? I meant Inland Helicopters.
Inland. And that's how you know Dave.
That's how I know Dave.
Good old Dave Valente.
Yes. And I got really lucky there because my instructor, James, he was a high time helicopter guy, so very experienced. And I got to see that very early on, kind of see what's possible with the helicopter. And I feel like really catapulted my learning career, just starting with a high time instructor like that. And then once I got private commercial done, I kind of did it a little bit backward. And I did the fixed wing thing in Coeur d'Alene after that. And then it's after I finished the fixed wing private instrument that I went and joined the National Guard.
Crazy. That's A lot. Seems chaotic. You have a good wife.
I do.
She didn't hate you by the end of that?
No, she's super supportive.
Living in a van down by the river?
Yeah, we lived in a van for 2 years. 67 square feet gets really small, especially in the winter.
Oh my gosh. So you did van life. Was that because of necessity? Were you excited to do van life? Why'd you choose to do that?
Well, I mean, it was 100% financially driven. We needed to pay down a bunch of debt. And so van life afforded us the ability to do that.
Nice.
We lived on my income alone, and every dime of hers went to paying off that debt.
That's cool.
And then when I sold the van, we did well on it, and I used that money to finance flight school.
Yeah, it's super cool. What's like? I think that this has nothing to do with helicopters, but I'm just curious. So I'm going to ask it. There's like this allure, this kind of sex appeal of van life. What's the reality of van life? Good and bad.
You lose everything all the time. Like, you're always just looking for stuff because it's all like packed away so very efficiently in a Tetris-like manner that you're always like packing and unpacking within that small space to like try to find things. But funny enough, whenever I get into something, I go super deep into it. I actually ended up starting a company with 2 other guys in Chattanooga, kind of before the Pacific Northwest thing, doing the van conversions because we knew that we were going to have to do it in order to pay down the debt. And that company is still going today. It's super successful. So that was a fun thing. And then funny enough, we just bought another Sprinter. And it's awesome. Like, they're so convenient.
What kind of Sprinter do you have now?
It's a 144 high roof. So it's the shortest wheelbase. It looks like the Amazon truck, basically.
Yeah.
But if you have kids, I highly recommend it because you can load them and unload them while you're standing up inside.
And that's it's like you can sleep in there too, type of situation.
Oh yeah. Yeah. We got a bed.
And how much does Halsey have to pay for a van like that?
We'll have to talk offline, but anyway, I mean, you could do it low budget, but yet still somewhat reliable for probably 30, but you're going to be looking at something old. And then, you know, if you're DIYing it with the van costs included, probably 80 would be on the high end for DIY. And then if you have somebody outfitted, it can go as high as like 200.
Man. Well, we should definitely talk about that offline. That seems kind of fun. I really want it for the mountain and for kiteboarding and all the other activities that I like to take part in. Dave Valenti, great guy. That's a helicopter name.
Oh yeah.
I don't know how long Mr. Valenti has been flying helicopters, but I assume it's a very long time. I first met Dave when I was in charge of scheduling check rides back at Hillsboro. And fun fact, nowadays, I'm fairly certain that a DPE, a designated pilot examiner, can essentially go outside of their FSDO region and give check rides. But back in the day, it wasn't necessarily like that. It was like each region had DPEs that were specific to that region, and you had to use them. And if for whatever reason you couldn't use them, then you could go through some gymnastics with the FSDO and get approval to get an outside DPE. And so Dave, I think, was part of the Seattle FSDO, so not part of the Portland FSDO where Hillsboro was. Mm-hmm. But we had so many check rides all the time that I was like constantly having to get approval for Dave to come and give check rides. And out of all the check rides that he's done at Hillsboro, none of them were ever with me. I never actually flown with Dave. I at that time, I knew Dave pretty well. We would talk all the time. I like how he talks. He's an Italian guy. He kind of sings when he talks. Very knowledgeable helicopter guy. One of those dudes that you just never hear a bad thing about in the industry. So that's kind of neat that you and I have that connection of knowing Dave.
Yeah, he's also a really great musician. So,
is he?
Yeah, sings when he talks. Kind of makes sense.
I mean, don't you kind of feel like he sings a little bit when he talks?
Oh, now that you say it, it makes sense.
Yeah, like that's that was just kind of. I don't know. It's just when I think of Dave, I always think about that. Dave told me a funny story, and I think it was only funny because he was talking in his accent. And I'm not going to try. Maybe I'll try. But the whole premise of the story was like,
Please don't.
I'm flying around and we have an engine failure. And I say, hey, look, there's a runway right there. Maybe we should just land there. And it was fine. And I'm like, okay, yeah, that makes a lot of sense. That's a lucky place.
Yeah.
Lucky place to have an engine failure. Oh, and then another time, this was good too. He was new to Hillsboro doing check rides. And, part of the private check ride is, you have to like plan a leg of the cross country and fly that first leg, right? And in Hillsboro, we had a point in our West practice area called the turning tree. If anyone's listening from Hillsboro, airplane or helicopter, the turning tree. It's a very prominent tree in the middle of not many trees. And so Dave's doing a check ride with this Brazilian gal, I think, or European gal, I don't remember. And she's lost. She's having a hard time finding the turning tree. And Dave is telling me the story. He's like, I don't know what this tree is all about, but I look out and I see a tree and I'm like, that looks like the turning tree. Maybe you should go that way. And so she found the turning tree and I think she passed, but
nice.
Just good old Dave, man. That's cool. How high, when you say high time, your instructor, how high time was he?
I think he had like 3,000 hours.
And he had just all been instructing?
Most of it had been instructing, but he had just started doing some stuff in the 206 for the police department.
Crazy. That's a lot of instruction time for sure. So you go to Helivision, you do your thing, you shot your shot, as they like to say these days. And Helivision answered, you go, you do your tours, you do your instruction there for a couple of years.
It's funny you say shot your shot because their main business is carrying a camera around for automotive racing, NASCAR, IndyCar, IMSA.
Oh, really?
And, I got to be involved with that quite a bit, and that was really cool to see like how, not only on the instruction side and the tour side, but then also seeing how they're really using these things for work.
Is that why they're called Helivision?
Yes.
I had no idea. I don't know anything about Helivision. Now I know.
Now you know.
What else? So what, they would put like a shot over, or did they have their own camera? How did that all work?
Yeah, they've got their own camera systems, and they would do the live coverage for the event. So you've got pilot and then a camera operator, and usually a 206.
Who's the camera operator? Is it our buddy David?
They kind of rotate through.
Multiple.
It's not always the same guy.
Yeah. And that's for, you said NASCAR? Like they travel around the whole United States?
Yeah, every NASCAR race is them, and IndyCar, and then IMSA, which is sports car racing. It's
very cool.
It's all them. Yeah. So I'm a big car guy. So it was that was a really fun thing for me to be a part of that.
Yeah, that'd be really fun. I had no idea. I'm learning so much about US. This is amazing. I should do better interviews, like for my company.
Yeah, maybe.
I suck. I would have known that you were arrested. I would have known that you were a blood doping cyclist.
Yeah.
I would have known that you tried to go to the Air Force, the National Guard, all these things.
Yeah, there's a lot. Got a lot of things.
So after Helivision, what's next? So one of the things that I find interesting about you is, when we did meet, it's like you're a guy that used to live in a van. Now you live at an airport. You got twins.
Yeah.
Young twins. You're married. And you're like CFIing in one helicopter for people in like an area. Not really like a school, but you're kind of like operating as your own school. Like you're teaching people. Like what are you doing?
This podcast is brought to you by HeliCASTS. Tired of listings that go nowhere? Exhausted by tire kickers who waste your time? Don't sell your helicopter alone. HeliCASTS handles the entire process from start to finish. So, if your helicopter is sat too long waiting for a buyer, contact the team at HeliCASTS today for your complimentary market valuation. Call 1-855-HeliCASTS, 1-855-735-5226, or email sales@helicopter.com. HeliCASTS. List it, sell it, done.
Yeah. Yeah. So whenever my wife and I had our twins, it was just very hard to maintain a safe working environment, being sleep deprived, and all of the challenges that come with, new humans. I had to step back from a full-time position there, and I did some contract stuff with Helivision. And then I had a student and his brother that wanted me to help them get this Cirrus flight club up and going. And so started working on that. My student's brother had a Robinson that we brought here, and I did some private flight instruction out of that for 2 or 3 people, very part-time with the kiddos. And then kind of since then, it didn't really take off, pardon the pun, the flight club thing. So we switched gears, and then I've just been doing instruction with private individuals, usually R44 owners who've purchased their own helicopters and would like to learn how to fly them. And that's been a really fun thing for me. And I would highly recommend people, pursue that path, and then just also just working your network and just keeping in touch with people. I think that I can equate my successes so far to that, just keeping in touch with people. But yeah, so as far as that goes, I stay pretty busy with that, and then watched several of those students from different areas buy helicopters, and one of them went well, but the other ones it didn't go so well. So I started thinking, how do I get involved in this process to be able to help these guys out? Because I was giving counsel, but I didn't really know what I was doing with the purchasing of aircraft. And so I kind of stayed in my lane with that. But I decided after seeing them have some horrific experiences with that I was going to get involved. And then that's where we ended up getting connected through Jason Quinn, and the rest is history.
The rest is history. And you are officially a helicopter sales broker. Wes is newly on, but he's actually already closed a deal this week, actually. So, usually during our stand-up, Wes would then make a little celebration emoji fly, but I don't think we can do that here on the podcast. You get an acquisition, been hired to help someone buy an aircraft. So it's really cool. If you actually end up following the route that Wes has gone, where you start doing private instruction and you're working with individuals that might be interested in buying aircraft and things, you are kind of primed to be in a good position to sell. And I would highly recommend you reach out to me because I think Wes can attest that Helicopter does a pretty good job at turning pilots into helicopter sales ninjas. Because just because you're a pilot doesn't mean you know anything about sales. It's very different. And there's a lot of nuances to aviation sales and how it all goes, as I'm sure Wes is learning. So shameless plug for Helicopter, but go team. We're very lucky to have Wes. He's killing it. And, I think something that I do know of Wes, even though I've learned actually quite a bit during the podcast today, is he's very good at networking. And that's what's going to make him very successful in aircraft sales. But beyond that, if you're listening to the podcast and your end all dream is not selling aircraft, it doesn't matter, because networking is still pretty much the most important part of this whole game. There's a lot of politics that go into getting a job in helicopters. There's a lot of polling and favors, and this guy knows this guy or whatever it may be. And so the sooner you dive into this idea that you have to be a master networker, the more success you're going to find when it comes to getting jobs. And it's always things that might be unexpected too. And that's what I like about Wes's journey, is Wes has just consistently stayed in touch with his network. He's shot his shot earlier with Helivision, all these different things. And I'm guessing that his path of helicopter flying and helicopter career path has probably looked very different than what he thought, right?
Very much
He was
so.
doing things for the National Guard. That's not happening. He was doing things for this or that. But he's doing what he's doing now. And it's all because he's just been flexible but he's also been engaged with his network. So I think it's a good testament there. And it's pretty cool, Wes. I think that you're doing some really cool things. And it's been fun to get to know you for sure.
Thank you. And, shameless plug as well. A lot of times I would say that the personality type that lends themselves well to flying an aircraft, like if you don't find yourself wanting to be that social butterfly, it's nice to have a resource where you can send people to that are experts in the industry to help them through that very complicated process when it comes to like buying an aircraft or figuring out how to maintain that machine. I think that there's a lot of value to be said for that. And then especially in a CFI role, because these people have a lot of trust in you. Obviously, they're trusting their life to you. And then for you to be able to do that, or to help service them when it comes to buying an aircraft by pushing them off to professionals that are kind of experts in their craft, I think that's a huge value add there.
I agree with everything Wes just said. Everything Wes said, perfect. Couldn't say it better myself. How old are you, Wes?
I'm 32.
32 years old?
Yeah.
32. You've lived a lot of life. You're a cycling guy. You got twins. You lived in a van. You financed your flight school. And flight school wasn't that long ago. Like
No.
you're actually fairly new, but you've amassed a lot of hours. You have your fixed wing stuff. You've even created your own path of suggested training. If someone wants to chat with you and learn more about kind of the path that you took and maybe even just some mentorship and whatnot, what's the best way for them to get in touch with you?
Yeah, I would say probably email.
What's your email?
We'll plug it in the show notes. Wesley.
Is it Wesley? I thought we went Wes.
No, it's Wesley.
Well, as he's doing that,
Wesley.r at Cellicopter.
Okay, it's Wesley.r. I suggested just Wes because that's so easy, but I guess no one listens to me. So it's Wesley.r at Cellicopter.com. You can reach out to him. You can ask him about anything. You can even ask about helicopter sales and acquisition, of course. MHM is like, all right, stop plugging yourself on their podcast here. So we've probably hit our limit.
Right.
Well, and we've actually hit our limit of the episode. So to our listeners, thank you so much for listening. This is a cool episode. I love tangenting. I love just free flow. The honest truth about the Helicopter Podcast, guys, is like there isn't a ton of. My whole premise of the show is like I don't really actually want to have a plan when I come and have these conversations, and I'm sure that's maybe apparent because there's very little pre-interviewing and things like that. I just like to talk about helicopters. That's what the show is all about. It's just two helicopter people talking about helicopters, learning about past, learning about each other, and kind of creating community around helicopter pilots. So I hope you feel like you're part of this community because we love having you be part of it. To our sponsors, thank you so much. I'm repping a lot of sponsor stuff today. I got my Robinson mug. Pretty cool. And then I even just found this Robinson pen on my desk. So I'm just flooded with Robinson stuff today. So anyway, to our listeners, thank you so much. To Vertical HeliCAST platform, thank you. Wes, any partying thoughts?
No, just always seek to become better as, person, pilot, human being. And then whenever you do find yourself in a mentor-mentee or mentee-mentor relationship, always just try to pay it forward and give credit where credit's due, and let people know how much influence you've had on their life. I think that really goes a long way.
I agree. Those are important relationships on both ends to nurture. And the cool part about those relationships is you're the mentee and then you become the mentor, right? You're always going to be kind of trading spots. So I appreciate what you said there. As always, keep the dirty side down. And thanks for listening to the Helicopter Podcast.
Thanks, Halsey.
Thank you to our sponsor, Robinson Helicopter Company, the choice for unrivaled safety and reliability so you can accomplish any mission with confidence. For more than half a century, Robinson has been at the forefront of the helicopter industry. From the R-22 to the R-66 turbine, Robinson makes helicopters accessible so more people can accomplish more missions. Climb higher. For additional information, visit www.robinsonheli.com.
Thank you to our sponsor, Vertical Aviation International. Are you ready for the largest vertical aviation show in the world? Verticon, formerly HAI HeliExpo, is coming to Dallas in March. With over 15,000 professionals and 600 companies in attendance, this is an event you don't want to miss. If you're interested in exhibiting, contact sales at verticalavi.org. That's sales at verticalavi.org. See you at Verticon.
This podcast is brought to you by HeliCASTS. Tired of listings that go nowhere? Exhausted by tire kickers who waste your time? Don't sell your helicopter alone. HeliCASTS handles the entire process from start to finish. So, if your helicopter is sat too long waiting for a buyer, contact the team at HeliCASTS today for your complimentary market valuation. Call 1-855-HeliCASTS, 1-855-735-5226, or email sales@helicopter.com. HeliCASTS. List it, sell it, done.